Brian Lowe, welcome to Show Studio.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good, yeah.
I can't wait to talk to you about your show because it was a real real standout from London Fashion Week. But I also thought beyond it being one of the shows that everyone was really excited about, I thought for you and for your trajectory, it was really interesting. It felt like it was it sounds incredibly patronising, but like a coming of age moment in some ways.
Yes.
And everyone was very excited. And were you surprised by the reaction? Because it was so positive.
I'm really surprised by the reaction because we did take a lot of risks this season. So.
Yeah, tell me a bit about that, because I think, I've got your show notes here and there was definitely that focus on change. You said Brian is riding high on the seas of change, which I thought was very sweet. Tell me more about some of the risks and some of the sort of like turning points.
Well, it's our first solo catwalk, so it just makes sense to kind of do things a bit properly, I guess. There's no paint this season, you realise there's no glitter. Usually we do individual characters, it's about a whole wardrobe. But this time it just felt right to do more repeats. So this time every single girl is in high heels. It's actually the first time, because usually we have like Nicholas Kirkwood pumps or like Sophie Webster Converse, and the makeup, we only have one makeup. Usually we have 3 sections. Do you remember Sylvanian Families? You got the pretty makeup, and then you got the nose section and the panda section. So within those 3, and then we have variations. So usually we do literally every girl is slightly different, but this time it just felt right to be polished and sleek.
Did you want it to feel kind of more grown up? You say things like no glitter. Was that part of the thing?
Yes, it was intentional. Mostly because I think the brand is still very new and green. So and when I get inspired from, the inspirations are quite, I would say, funny and tacky. Like, so, you know the Sex and City reference, or the ABBA, or Japanese manga. I mean, I personally is very serious about these elements, but I think it's almost becoming a joke. Yeah. So I just thought it's time to do something a bit more sophisticated, a bit more womanly. That's
really interesting that you say that, because it's one of the things that I wondered about with your work, because as you say, you do have these kind of, like, they're really amazing references, and they're right, as you say, kind of quite elements of pop culture and things like, for this show you talked about Frozen, but then you also talked about like Swan Lake. But I think you're right that those kind of pop culture references, things like cartoons, quite childlike things, they've kind of exploded. And were you worried about your work sometimes being seen as kind of gimmicky or kind of silly? I guess, was this an attempt to show how serious you are about it?
Yes, it's really about building a brand. And it just felt like the right time to do something a bit sophisticated. So I never worked with black. There's black, navy. I mean, this collection is just literally black, navy, burgundy, beige. It's all really womanly, kind of demure, sophisticated colours. It was meant to be daywear, and it's not about pushing boundaries, abstract or asymmetric. It's nothing like that. It's really about refining and polishing all these ideas from previous collection, and
We've talked a bit about this before, but it's something that I found very interesting, and what you said surprised me. Tell me a bit about some of you say you want to build a brand. Tell me about some of the brands who you'd see yourself alongside, because I think people have in the past, and we've talked about it, they've compared you to kind of other young London labels, but I think you find that quite frustrating, don't you? Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, I'm really inspired. Well, growing up, obviously, I'm just obsessed with Sonia Rykiel and Stella Chloe or Phoebe Chloe. It's just that cool, hip, fun, trying to have it all kind of woman, It's just clothes that you wear, it's wardrobe, it's lifestyle. It's not so much about, the gimmick, the fun.
That's interesting though, because I think people would look at your stuff and think sometimes that it was a bit like, a bit abstract, a bit kind of, bit bonkers, a bit for this very fashion girl. But actually this collection I think really proved otherwise. It suggests it was for this kind of, that cool girl that just wants to wear cool clothes and be out and about. Was that something that was important? To like show it as a kind of a real proposition, stuff that you can actually wear?
Yes.
Like yes. Yeah. And one question before I want to go to the show video, but one thing, the opening kind of quote on your show notes was, "Love will be the gift you give yourself," and that's a lyric from a Celine Dion and Barbara Streisand song.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell me.
Yes.
And then you've got a Britney Spears lyric, which is not a girl, not yet a woman. It's kind of a Britney Spears lyric. What were you listening to in the studio?
Not a Britney Spears reference, but usually when I start the collection, it's we start from the music, so it's about the character of the girl and then the attitude, and then the shoes, and then the hair and makeup. Because I think the posture and the hair changes the attitude of the girl and the posture. And then we start building this character. Where is she going? Who's she dating? Is she single or not? You know, what about parents? And what does she do? And then the clothes actually come the last.
That's so interesting.
So instead, I know most designers. You know, you design a collection, then you pick the hair makeup to fit it. We're doing the opposite usually. It's everything else and then the clothes.
And there has to be a narrative, there has to be a story, a sense of her being someone going somewhere.
Yes, because there's so many possibilities that, you know, there's so many stories that we can do. It just makes things a lot easier, help us to be more decisive.
I can imagine. Let's have a look at the show, and just as we start looking, tell me a bit about the story for this season, because I think it is an interesting one. It's this, because it's quite a different girl. Usually your girl's kind of looking for love, but she's not anymore. She's kind of found love with herself, hasn't she? And tell me about the opening look, because I'll pause it at a good point. How do you decide, because you mentioned you come up with the kind of the narrative and you decide on the hair and makeup. How do you decide which look opens the show? Is that something you do from the start?
No, I never do running order. For me, it's about individual girls. So it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what you're gonna wear. The running order, actually, Robbie decided. I have to be really honest, I have no say in that, but I trust him, so.
Yeah, and this was the first time you worked with Robbie Spencer on the styling?
No, the second time.
Second time, okay. Tell me a bit about how you choose who you work with for your styling.
I don't know, just gut instinct.
Yeah, gut. Yeah. That's interesting. And tell me, I just want to talk about some of the people you collaborated with, because the millinery is really amazing, and that was Noel Stewart. And why is your girl in a hat? Is that just kind of who she is? She's kind of a bit dressed up.
Initially, we start with like proper Russian, you know, fur hats, very Korean.
Yeah.
You know, something maybe that's a bit manly.
Okay.
So we start going for that kind of a widow's black, you know, Keira Knightley in Anna Karenina, she still had that veil thing going on. So we go for that, and then a bit of swan kind of marabou. So I guess that is just like refining, you know, ideas from previous seasons with the annual headband. So this time it's like a bow, so it's still very ladylike. It's very pretty.
What made you decide that you wanted? Because I do think, you know, your work is so about romance, and what made you decide that you wanted her to be, because it's quite I was really surprised when I saw the show, and it's this idea that, you know, she's no longer seeking love, she's found it in herself. What made that feel really right? Was it just all, again, part of that growing up?
No, again, it's just this misconception. Everyone that I know thinks that I'm quite optimistic, but I'm not. I just wanted to do a quite slow, depressing but romantic. You know, it's about death and rebirth. You know, kind of very somber collection.
Did you feel a bit like you were being pigeonholed then, and you wanted to kind of change ideas of who you were?
Yes, especially I think in London, a lot of the designers are doing similar things.
Yeah.
It's always good to take a risk, and I think while I'm under new gen sponsorship, let's just do something different.
It gives you that option.
Take a chance.
And tell me a bit, because I want to talk as well about this notion of kind of like theatre, because I think, you know, that's something that clearly, this was your first solo presentation, but you made a real point that you obviously cared about kind of like, the theatre of fashion, and it was like a show in the sense of, you know, the music you picked was really interesting. I thought, you know, some of the artists that you played, things like Philip Glass and Aphex Twin, but also just getting Gary Card to do your set. Is that something that you're quite passionate about, shows that are kind of theatrical and where there's a sense of ambience?
I just want the show to be perfect, so every detail has to be perfect. Yeah, I actually just asked Scary like literally like a week before the show.
Did you?
Yeah. Long story short, no. Initially, I did ask him in Halloween. He was really drunk. He came over to he was really drunk, and then he came over to my studio, hang out Halloween, and then I gave him a T-shirt, and then asked him, "Can you do my set?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll do your set for the T-shirt." And then a week before the show, I emailed him again. Is it serious? Are we going to do it? Yeah. No, and then he said, yeah, he's going to do it.
What brief did you give him then? Because the set, it is, I think it's interesting you talk about pessimism, because it is kind of like, it really contrasts from the clothes, because it's very haphazard, it's wayward, and it's kind of rubbishy. Yeah. What brief did you give him?
Ice skating princesses. It's almost like kind of like Swan Lake, you know, it's the midnight, you know, there's full moon, so kind of, I don't know, Belarus kind of dancing on the lake. Yeah.
How many times did you watch Frozen in the preparation for this?
Just once, but I did listen to that song many times. Yeah.
And talk me through a little bit in terms of the looks, because you've talked a lot about this idea of a wardrobe and daywear, and just tell me a little bit about how you wanted the show to flow.
Well, in terms of the show, the running order, I think we just go with the colour palette.
Okay.
Still start from burgundy and then move on to the beige and then the blue and then the white. But for me, it's about a proper wardrobe. You know, proper boring basic stuff. You know, range blend. So jumpers, shirt dresses, cocktail dresses, separates, coats. You know.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found interesting, this focus on daywear, because I think you have always done daywear really well, but I think people have this, I think maybe it's because your work is quite detailed and it's very beautifully kind of created. I think people have this notion that your pieces are very kind of like special pieces.
Oh, evening, yeah.
Yeah, evening. Is that something that you find a bit, you kind of want to move away from?
Yes, actually if you go on Net-a-Porter,
one of your stockists?
Yes. It's all day wear. It's dungarees, the cardigan, separates, all day wear. So I guess it's just the styling was a bit confusing. Yeah. There was lots of layered, and this time it just felt right to just a dress as a dress. It's not confusing. So.
It is interesting. I want to talk more about this notion of it being grown up, just in terms of, it's interesting you mentioned one of your stockists, because I think that's one thing as well, because obviously your aesthetic, it is very girlish, but I guess part of the, maybe it's not a difficulty, maybe it's like an exciting challenge of your work is keeping that aesthetic and keeping those inspirations, as you said, things like, you know, like some of the cartoons you reference, like Sailor Moon, things like that, and make them relevant to a luxury shopper. Is that something that kind of is, because there is that girlish element, but then, you know, you always cite Sex and the City, and there are kind of older women who dress like that, and how do you get that balance right?
Well, I mean, it's just that basic question. Why are you a designer? What makes you special? And I thought, you know, what I would do, in terms, just talk about the clothes itself. It's just clothes that you wear, and I thought there should be a meaning or a story behind it that's make it a bit more special. Not so much on the garment itself, but the thought process that went into it. So, and I don't think a lot of designers in London reference Japanese cartoons or Chinese culture or whatever, anything like that. So
that's one of the things, because do you feel that your background is very much, like, in your ethnicity really inspires the work that you do, and that seems like that is something quite unique. Is that something that you're very proud of?
Yes. Obviously, you know, Hong Kong was part of the UK. Yeah. And when I grew up, I did watch a lot of Japanese cartoon, but then I'm growing up with Chinese culture. Yeah. But then I'm really familiar with all the Disney things. Yeah. So in a way, it's almost like,
it's like a mishmash, but that's
international school. So try to bring that all in. Yeah,
but that is what London's like. Like, people always really like a cliche, but people always talk about it being like a melting pot. But actually, I think your work really sums up those kind of clashing different sort of aspects of different cultures growing up in different places, and I think that feels very relevant to a kind of we always talk about a global fashion audience, but it feels very, very relevant.
Yeah, I tried to please a lot of people, obviously. Not please, but like the clothes should appeal to a wider audience. So, you know, we try to keep the girl quite chic and polished and still cute and sexy, so it's not just, you know, the females. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if a strict man find my girl, you know, looking weird and bizarre, that's not what I want.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, you know, some people I think would see your work as a reaction to kind of minimalism and a reaction to like that kind of Celine aesthetic where everything's very kind of like, you know, plain and polished. But it's interesting that you still want it to feel sophisticated, don't you? You still want it, yeah. Do you see it as a reaction to minimalism?
No, no. I don't think about maximism or minimalism. I just do what I feels right. So there's always a balance. So there's looks that's just one dress. There's looks that are layered, you know, with jewellery, with hat pieces. Yeah. So it's just how we dress every day.
How you dress, yeah. I love when you say how we dress. Is it quite street inspired? Do you look at like how the girls around you are dressing, and does that inspire you?
No.
You're like, no, they all dress terribly.
No. Like you said, I did think about the Sex and City girls, or even, you know, maybe Gossip Girl. Why not Lily Humphrey? Why not Serena, or, you know, Blair or Jenny? So different women for different seasons. So I don't know. It just has to be believable. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want.
But it's weird because you say believable, but it is this mix of fantasy and believable, because it is like these kind of fictitious characters, but
they are fictional. But I think a lot of women are aspired to be them. So yeah,
I like that. And tell me a bit about this look, because this is I found it interesting that you did this kind of like the bride, like was that?
Yeah, that's the closing look. I just wanted to do something that's quite sugar sweet, because you know, I did do fuller, bigger dresses before, so it's just a cleaner version of that.
But it's interesting because it's a very conventional thing to do. Like, it's very traditional to close a show with a bride. Is that something that you're kind of quite? It's interesting, just like that. It's not something you see in London ever, which I liked. I thought it was cute.
It's quite Chanel, I have to say. Not that I'm not copying Carl, but you know, it's very old school.
Yeah, it's very old school.
And this collection is meant to be old school.
Meant to be old school and traditional.
Yeah.
I want to go through some of the fabrications, but we'll look at the close-ups when we do it. That's my favourite, the penultimate one. It's very good. Have you ever dressed a bride?
No, someone did email me, but we don't have time to do that.
Do you know? Oh, that's a shame.
No.
I think you'd be very good at that. Okay, let's have a look. I want to go and see the close-ups. Here we go. So tell me just a little bit about, because we talked a lot about concept, obviously, and like the bigger picture, but tell me about the specifics of this collection and some of the fabrications that you were using. And we've talked about the palette a bit, but just talk me through, because obviously there was a huge focus on lace, and everything looked incredibly laboured.
Let's start with the hair.
Okay.
So the hair in the previous look was kind of like Amanda Bynes inspired, actually.
Oh, really?
Amanda Bynes going to court, she was wearing like a wig. Well, technically it's partly inspired from me, actually, you know, like,
yeah, I was gonna say,
it's like a fringe with the hair. We're a bit, you know, the cartoon Lady Oscar.
Yeah.
So kind of boho check, I guess, a bit Victorian.
Yeah.
With this season we have 3 hairstyles, so we have that one, and then we also have like Catherine Deneuve.
Yeah.
So the upper bit is up, and then it's all wavy and sexy. And the third one is the ice skating princess.
The ice skating princess.
So the hair kind of dictates where we go. So for this look particularly, it was just meant to be something a bit quite Suru. It was meant to be, you know, so I was researching all these Victorian things. I thought it's...
Why did Victorian kind of strike your fancy this season?
We always have Victorian. We also do...
But it was so much more so than usual, I thought. Maybe that's just how I read it.
Maybe it's just a reference. I'm more European this time, more Russian. So we always have pussycat bows, you know, lace blouse. But I thought maybe the colour palette.
Yeah, and tell me a bit. Yeah, keep talking me through it. Tell me about sort of the starting point for the fabrics. Was there, because I think what's interesting about your work is it looks incredibly ornate, but there's also this kind of quite sweet DIY aspect which always comes through as well. And perhaps less so of that this season. And yeah, tell me about the fabrications.
Well, the fabrics. like I said, it was just refining ideas. So we actually did have certain patterns, different embroidery patterns from previous seasons,
yeah.
but it just felt right to do an easier color palette, because what we were selling were like neon orange and pink with gold, you know, little flowers, and this time it's all black and purple. It was just meant to be quite mad.
Yeah.
And I've never touched. If I'm sure you were really familiar with my work. It's all glitter and shiny and lyrics, and it's all polyester. So.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask you. I think there's been you play very well with things that are a bit like where they're in time, like designed to look a little bit DIY, even a little bit like in a good way. I mean, it's like a little bit cheap, like things that are shiny. And as you say,
it's very Patricia Field.
Yeah, exactly. But this season it felt like really it was about kind of. I think they looked very luxurious. They looked very expensive. It looked less about surface and more about kind of thing.
My mum had a lot of input on it.
Really?
She was like, no, I won't wear this. No, I won't wear that. So
So you wanted to make it more polished. That's very interesting.
More womanly.
And tell me a little bit. This was a look that really I just thought this was so beautiful. Tell me a bit about the workmanship behind this.
Well, again, obviously we did the pattern themselves. The color palette, I can't remember where it's from, honestly. It's been a while ago. But anyway, it was partly inspired from that kind of Chanel, Sonia Rykiel, like old, you know, like cardigan shapes, when you just have like highlights of the, you know, the bracket or the collar and the pocket. So it was just like a fun kind of fairy version of that.
It's interesting that you talked about pessimism though, because I think there's something. These girls, they don't look they don't look bedraggled in any way. They're still quite. I think your girl always looks very. Even if she is a bit kind of haphazard, and you talk about it being a bit tacky, she does always look very together. That she's never like. There's never anything kind of sinister about her. She's never got her kind of like. I think a lot of your peers do things where, you know, she looks like she's coming home from a night out or anything like that. Whereas your girl is always. She always looks quite in control.
Yes, it's a total look. Yeah. Because I think, you know, there should be a purpose of dressing up. So, I don't know, for me it's that Cinderella thing, you know, you're dressed up to go somewhere. Yeah. It's prom, you're dressed up.
Dressed up. She's dressed up to go to the library.
Yeah, or dressed up to go roll on the bed, you know, it's a Victorian shirt dress for jumper dress.
Yeah, so were you saying, was that inspired by Victorian kind of, because it looked like, Victorian night dresses? Like
yes,
that kind
it was like kind of men's pyjama.
Sure.
And then I'm obsessed with roses, so we have the roses on the knitwear, and then later on I'll show you have roses, embroidered fabrics, and then roses button. So.
Why are you obsessed with roses? You just like them?
Yeah, I don't know, it's just that kind of fading beauty. It's just partly inspired from a love story, I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's about white rose and a bird.
Oh, I don't know.
So the bird killed itself, so the white rose can turn into a red rose.
Oh god.
So it's like bleeding rose on this.
Oh, I think I do know this. Is it like... No, maybe I'm going to get it wrong now, so I'm just not going to say it well.
But yeah, I'm just obsessed with that idea of like dying swans and dying birds. Yeah. Black swan, you know, and a coriander, kind of like suicidal, like frozen. And not frozen, Anastasia. So like Anastasia, quite dark, you know.
But that's interesting. I think that was one of the things that I think perhaps surprised people with this collection, is I think they have thought of your work as you talked about people always thinking you're an optimist, but they have thought about it as quite light-hearted and quite kind of, like, in a good way, like silly and fun, whereas this felt like, there was a lot of, I think your passion for referencing came through, but also the complexity of your references, as you talk about some of those kind of like, slightly more mature stories. Tell me a bit about the knitwear, because that's one thing I'm interested in, because it seems that you mentioned that passion for Sonia Rykiel, but I think, is that a category that you're very excited by, working with knit? Because I think, as we talked about before, people think of you as about dresses, and is this about proving your kind of, your way with separates? Yeah,
I'm always obsessed with knitwear. Well, I like both machine knits and hand crochet stuff, so for me the hand crochet thing is just like a no-brainer. Yeah. It's really about that kind of grandmother, you know, knitting a jumper.
Didn't you teach yourself to knit off YouTube? Is that right?
I did partly from my mum, but mostly on YouTube. I did. I did learn a lot of technique on YouTube, and
anyone?
Yeah, I made a graduate collection now of knitwear, but I studied women's wear.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why I do that, but anyway. Anyway,
and what's the motif on this? Because I couldn't.
A lot of people don't get it.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Okay, so these are the trees and the branches. These are trees. These are the dark sky.
Oh, I see.
And then that's the snow, and then the mud, and then the snow.
I thought it might say something. I was like, does it say something?
A lot of people don't get it.
That's quite cool in a way because it's a bit abstract.
It was, yeah.
You're like, no, people need to understand.
Yeah, people need to understand, but it's okay. I mean,
I'm glad you've explained.
At the end of the day, you can read whatever you want to.
Yeah. And tell me about the jewellery, because that's one of the things that I was really sort of like, I just thought it was really beautiful.
So collaborate with my friend O. She well, basically we start from last season, so this season just like I really want to do kind of like Marie Antoinette, proper Victorians. I mean, if we go Victorian, let's go all the way.
Yeah.
So like fancy crown jewels. So we did like we did a lot of things. We did the fur hoop earrings because we have fur on the dresses, on the I can't remember where else.
You have little fur on the little ankles, don't you?
Oh yeah, and then fur hats.
Yeah.
So, and then we did the swan, kind of like kissing swan.
It's a very good time given Cinderella just came out. It's very like no, it's very beautiful. And talk me through, so here's another where that's kind of a replication.
Yeah, another repeat.
Yeah. It's
just
interesting
right
to do repeats.
to
that's
do it.
For you,
yeah, because I know a lot of London designers do sections or repeat.
Yeah.
But I never did that, so
But that must have been nerve-wracking to do if it's not something you're used to, because it can really change the pace of a collection. It can make a collection feel like it's got less ideas if it's not done well. But I think it worked so well in this context.
Yeah, maybe it's just commercial decision. I don't know. Well, it's actually not less work.
Yeah.
It looks easy when we change the color palette, but you know, the previous one is like floral, this one's a check one.
Yeah.
The fur is completely different. You know, just to get the, I mean, it looks really simple and plain here, but then the embroidery and the dye, you have to get it right.
Yeah.
So, if I remember correctly, I think the embroidery thread has to be darker than the organza thread. I don't know, it's just weird things from the factory, you know, and so you have to work around
that stuff like that.
The box, yeah.
And tell me, I think it's interesting you talked about kind of like commercial decisions just then. Have you found yourself? I love this, it's so beautiful, the rose. Have you found yourself having to think a lot more commercially recently? Is that something that you kind of have enjoyed, that challenge, or is it hard?
It's been hard, honestly. I think about the commercial aspect since my first season. I think I get a little bit scared when I went to Paris the first time.
Yeah, it's quite an eye-opener, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because initially when Lulu plucked me from nowhere, I wasn't thinking about commercial at all. I mean, she said, I don't need to go to Paris, it's really up to me. But I did choose to go to Paris just to see the world, and then I was quite shocked. Because obviously in the London showroom you're with a lot of experienced designers.
Yeah, who've been selling for a long time.
Yes, exactly. So, and you're in the same showroom, it just doesn't look good. So, I don't know. And it's always nice to have a stock list.
Yeah.
We're always aiming for.
Are you ever surprised by who buys the stuff? Is it ever different to who you imagine wearing it when you're creating it?
I'm always surprised who's interested. It was a commercial decision to kind of change in flip-flops every season, because we don't have personally I don't have a technique or one thing that carry on. It wasn't like a denim or digital print that you can do every season.
Yeah, of course.
For me, my brand is really about aesthetic driven. It's about the mood or the attitude, you know, something within but not visual. So I just thought it's too early to just focus on one thing. Let's try different garments, knitwear and separates and different styles, so maybe different stock lists will react differently. So It just makes sense to do that, so to test the market. So yeah.
Talk me through this look, because it's the rose that you've got printed on there.
It was. I just wanted something a bit military. It's because we have the more frilly romantic look. So this one's meant to be more mannish, of like military, but I don't want it to be too literal. Like because last season, like spring was like everywhere, Marc Jacobs collection. So I don't want any pocket details, but just like the contrast with the panels or the cups and the bracket, or even just the belt. You know, little details that make it more stronger. Yeah.
Well, she's a single woman who loves herself, so she has to be strong. And I think this would be a look that would have, it's talking about surprising people, you talk about not using black, and then this was obviously much more kind of bruised and moody. And, and you know, I find the primness interesting though, because your girl, she's never really, she's never that revealed. She's always very covered up. Is that something that's quite important to you?
We did show nipples a few seasons ago.
But she's covered up in the way, like, you know, you see nipples on the Valentino runway, for example, but that girl is very prim. She's very...
Yeah. Well, we're saying clothes, right? We're not selling sex, so there should be clothes, For me, it's just that kind of funerals black, kind of widow's black, you know, things that you can wear in the evening. Yeah, that's going on Net-a-Porter, by the way.
Is it? Yeah, you get the vibe with this one. It is very grown up. I can see that on a lot of women. But I guess it is that. But then this, for example, is a look. I think the top half of this would really surprise people for you, because obviously the pussy bow is such a signature. But then the color of it, it's much more minimal. It feels very kind of like, a step forward.
It's just clothes to wear. Honestly, it's meant to kind of not visible in the crowd.
Oh, that's interesting. You want her to blend. Blend in. This is you.
Yeah, this is me. Yeah. So just a collection. So this collection is about, you know, kind of simple pieces that you can have in your wardrobe when you wear over and over again.
Over and over again. I like that. Do you have a favourite look from the collection?
Today, that's my favourite look today. But
why is that?
I'm just aiming for something slouchy, a bit more relaxed and sexy. But yeah, it changes every day.
I can imagine. And I do want to talk more about the kind of like the final bridal section, because was that just because those felt like the more kind of craft-driven pieces, but perhaps they weren't. Perhaps they were. They look more laboured than the other ones, but is that just because they're all in white, or were they the looks that took the longest to produce?
I guess certain capes and stuff, but not really. No. Maybe it's just the layers of the texture of the you know 3 or 4 different whites together. So for that jacket, it looks like we embroidered on the thing, but it's actually sheer organza with velvet, and then on top of a down jacket. Ah,
that's interesting. There's quite a lot of stuff like that where you can't work out if it's kind of been hand done, or if it's a fabric, or if it's. I thought that was quite interesting. I like your swans here. That's very cute. So, are you happy with the reaction then? Are you pleased? Do you feel like this is a step forward, and how's it going to spark the kind of your continued trajectory?
Well, I've done the I will not say boring, but I've done the commercial one. So next one will be a bit more exciting. It will be the first fashion collection.
Okay, I'm excited now.
It's meant to be fashion, because
Okay, fashion for fashion's sake. But I mean, this wasn't boring at all. I thought this was beautiful. I think it's really. I always find it really exciting to see a designer kind of consolidate what they do, and it felt like you'd done that without losing any of your ideas, which is what I really liked it. So congratulations. Thanks for talking to me.